Furious world leaders are beginning their retaliation against Donald Trump and his despicable regime for his threats to invade Greenland. You had the top ambassadors from Europe holding a secret meeting over the weekend where they discussed what they view as the nuclear option before a military incursion is actually necessary. They refer to it as a trade bazooka, using the most powerful lever of the European Union to basically shut down trade with the United States if it comes to it. One measure before an actual military fight with the United States, which Europe is now preparing for, and they will not back down. This as Donald Trump now turns his eye yet again to focus on Canada. And he's been telling everybody around him that he wants Canada, that Canada needs to be the 51st state. And he continues to mention this over and over again, as Kristen Welker reported earlier yesterday morning. Donald Trump, and this is regime media, so it's coming from Trump, folks. Donald Trump is increasingly ramping up his focus to target Canada. Donald Trump saying Canada is too vulnerable to U.S. adversaries and something needs to be done in Canada. Well, Prime Minister Carney has a message for you. He's considering deploying more troops to Greenland right now, and also Prime Minister Carney completed his trip to China, where he and Xi Jinping came up with a $1 trillion strategic trade alliance. Those electric vehicles from China are about to start pouring in to Canada, which will deliver a crushing blow to the United States auto industry. And also, China is going to start buying more liquefied natural gas from Canada, as well as more Canadian canola and more Canadian products in general. And by the way, a recent poll that just came out from China talks about that the boycott of certain goods and services and products from the United States, just take booze, for example, 73 to 75% of Canadians now are boycotting American products, giving the appropriate middle finger to Donald Trump and his despicable regime. And by the way, don't you just love it when you have state regime media hosts on Fox like Laura Ingraham and others whining, "You're going to crush our industry"? This is what Laura Ingraham posted. "Canada's trying to destroy the North American auto industry." No, they're not. They're trying to diversify trade partnerships. It's Donald Trump who destroyed the North American auto industry. State regime media host propagandist Laura Ingraham. And by the way, over the past 48 hours, $7 million in heroin was found on a truck trying to cross into Canada from the U.S. Yeah, it's the U.S. sending more drugs into Canada than the other way around, and the U.S. sending weapons into Canada and Mexico as well. I want to talk more about the bazooka trade option that Europe is talking about. I want to talk about additional emergency meetings that are going to be held at the highest levels of Europe. But I do want to share this photo with you right here. The coffins of Danish soldiers killed in Afghanistan in 2007, serving in a NATO mission launched after America invoked Article 5 following the 9/11 attacks. Hat tip Molly Plufkins for posting this right here. Denmark has lost more soldiers per capita than any country in the world after the United States invoked Article 5 after 9/11. The U.S. is the only person who's invoked Article 5. Our allies in Canada and Europe and others rushed to our defense, especially Denmark, who lost more of its citizens than any country. All right. Let's get into it a little bit more right here. Take a look right here. Orla Jeltsin, who lives in Nuuk in Greenland after those massive protests this weekend against Donald Trump and his regime. Orla posts the following photo of some of the Danish troops who are now involved in military operations and practicing for a potential United States invasion. Soldiers at a shooting range in Greenland. Shortly after the Danish army soldiers arrived in Greenland, they headed directly to the shooting range. Here, they had to zero in their weapons and get their first lessons on how to handle their weapons in freezing temperatures, wind, and snow. The soldiers will be in Greenland as part of the Arctic Endurance Exercise, which will focus on defending the northern flank. A number of NATO partners have also participated in this as well. Let's take a look at a statement that was issued from Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. As members of NATO, we are committed to strengthening Arctic security as a shared transatlantic interest. The pre-coordinated Danish exercise, Arctic Endurance, conducted with allies, responds to this necessity. It poses no threat to anyone. We stand in full solidarity with the Kingdom of Denmark and the people of Greenland. Building on the process begun last week, we stand ready to engage in dialogue based on the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity that we stand firmly behind. Now, you know Donald Trump has threatened any country, or handpick certain European countries, but if you don't support Donald Trump's invasion of Greenland, he says he's tariffing you 10% Feb 1, and then starting in June, another 25% tariff. And here's the joint statement says, tariff threats undermine transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous downward spiral. We continue to stand united and coordinated in our response. We are committed to upholding our sovereignty now. As the United States threatens tariffs here, tariffs there, you have Europe entering into one of the biggest free trade agreements in recent history with the Mercosur countries in South America. Brazil, Argentina, and other 700 million consumers will be part of this free trade agreement. And again, we're seeing the rest of the world expand their free trade agreements while Donald Trump wakes up in the morning, threatens to invade Greenland, threatens to invade Canada, 15% tariffs, 20% tariffs. The behavior by the Trump regime is utterly absurd. Trade bazooka. What's the trade bazooka? The European Union mulling a trade bazooka as Donald Trump's Greenland threats continue. European Union ambassadors reached a broad agreement on January 18th that they must intensify efforts against Donald Trump and his regime. They either accelerate their trade war or they fear they will go to a real war, and they are prepared to do both. French President Emmanuel Macron floated using the trade bazooka, European Union's biggest anti-coercion instrument against U.S. So basically, the trade bazooka, you declare a state, a coercive state, a hostile state. The original usage of trade bazooka, Europe thought they were going to have to use this against China. It's the last resort. But now they're preparing trade bazooka against the United States, meaning basically wholesale, shut it down, close the markets to American companies. And guess what Europe holds? They're like our largest holders collectively of United States Treasury bonds. Like, if you add up all of the European countries together, they hold like a total of like $8 trillion. They own like $8 trillion of bonds. Just think what they could do in a moment if they wanted to unload those bonds. Just think about what they can do and how they could screw over the entire American economy if they go nuclear with a trade bazooka, especially given the massive, massive ownership that they have of U.S. bonds. Like, this is where you want to go, Donald Trump. No wonder this idiot has gone bankrupt his entire life.
True self-reliance starts with taking control of your own health. Armra Colostrum is nature's original solution. Colostrum is packed with over 400 bioactive nutrients that fortify gut health and strengthen immune health to build resilience at the cellular level. Because when you invest in your health, you invest in your ability to show up, think clearly, and stay in control no matter what life throws your way. Today's environment is filled with toxins, processed foods, modern stressors, and immune disruptors. Nourish your microbiome and strengthen your barriers to support your immune health. Armra Colostrum is your secret to feeling strong, vibrant, and confident again. Not seeing results with your current routine? Colostrum is packed with 400 plus bioactive nutrients that work like a blueprint for your body, promoting your cells' natural renewal processes to support skin, hair, gut health, metabolism, immune health, lean muscle, and whole body vitality. Strengthen your gut integrity and support healthy fat metabolism to empower your body with the blueprint to revitalize health from the inside out. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 30% off your first subscription order. Go to armra.com/Meidas or enter Meidas to get 30% off your first subscription order. That's ARMRA.com/Meidas.
More I want to discuss as well. two things. You have the Denmark government talking about Trump regime's espionage against Denmark and Greenland. You also had France and Ukraine talking about Trump's espionage against Ukraine to help Putin. In both cases, U.S. intelligence services and Trump, sometimes even going around formal intelligence services through kind of other proxies in the regime, trying to steal classified information about Greenlandic military bases, facilities, Danish military bases and facilities in order to plan its invasion. When it came to Ukraine, I talked about this yesterday morning. One of the things that France and Ukraine worked on together, brilliant move, they would feed fake information, fake intelligence to the United States about Russia and Ukraine. Then they would wait to see if Russia would get that fake information, which was not actually what was happening on the ground, but they wanted to see France and Ukraine, if they gave the United States fake data, fake info, fake intelligence, if that would then be intercepted in the Russia interceptions that were done by Ukraine and France. And it turned out the Trump regime was indeed sending the fake intel that it thought was real to Russia. So France and Ukraine were using that in order to manipulate Putin and find out at the same time that Donald Trump was giving the info, or the Trump regime was giving the info by Putin, by giving the bad data. And then they would be able to actually find out that Russia was getting that info. But here's what we learned about in Denmark. According to an internal report from Danish Defense, Denmark's Ministry of Defense and top military leaders were increasingly concerned about reports that senior officials in the U.S. military have been attempting to get Danish authorities to hand over information about military installations, ports, and air bases in Greenland. Officials were telling the Danish national newspaper Berlingske. Experts tell officials that they should expect American espionage against Denmark. American espionage against Denmark. American espionage against Ukraine, giving the information to Putin. How utterly despicable. But let me tell you what Mette Frederiksen, the Prime Minister of Denmark, had to say. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said in a written response to Ritzau, the Kingdom of Denmark has strong support. At the same time, it's now even clearer that this matter extends beyond our borders. We want to cooperate, and it's not us who are seeking conflict. I'm pleased with the consistent message from the rest of the continent. Europe will not be pressured. Danish Prime Minister hailed the support that the European countries were giving to Denmark and Greenland in asserting themselves and stopping and pushing back forcefully against Donald Trump and the despicable regime right there. One other data point to point out as well, while all of this is taking place, China's GDP just continues to grow. Like, wasn't this whole trade war against the world in Donald Trump's demented mind part of a plan to decouple from China and hurt China? Well, that's not happening. China's economy continues to grow, 5% in 2025. They've expanded their trade partners outside the U.S. It seems that everybody's trading is expanding their trade relationships other than Donald Trump and his despicable regime. And you just hear more and more and more. I mean, you have Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, saying how stupid it is that Donald Trump is doing this to Greenland. There's not the U.S. is all alone on this. And I reflect on this. Let me remind you all this before we go. Do you remember last week at the United Nations where you had Donald Trump's United States ambassador to the UN try to rally the world against Iran and to say the U.S. is doing this against the Ayatollah? And by the way, I mean, the Ayatollah is brutal and terroristic, and the killings by the Ayatollah against the protesters in Iran, it's despicable. All true. The rest of the world, when the U.S. was like, hey, come to our help, the rest of the world was like, no, we're not. And frankly, everywhere in the world, even Netanyahu of Israel, I might add, when you lose him, but you had Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, all these countries, they were telling the United States, you can't attack Iran. If you attack Iran, One, you're not prepared. You don't have your military there. Your military is off the coast of Venezuela, so you can shake down Delcy Rodriguez, have your right-wing oligarch oil people buy the oil, take the $500 million or $1 billion that you're getting, put it in a bank account in frickin' Qatar that is shady and that nobody knows where the money's going. That's where your troops are. You don't even have the troops right now to attack Iran, even if you wanted to do it, because they're all in Venezuela as part of your money laundering or your whatever you're doing with the money that you're putting in the Qatar account. By the way, you've heard about Donald Trump's Board of Peace, where he's demanding countries pay him, not the United States, pay Donald Trump. Qatari bank account, pay Trump $1 billion. The $1 billion goes into the Qatari bank account to be a member of the Board of Peace, which is Trump's organization that wants to rebuild Gaza, is how they're describing it. Oh my God, really? That's what you're going to be doing with the Board of Peace? After who else is going to be a part of that Board of Peace with the atrocities being committed there? Horrific stuff. And then the money goes to pay Donald Trump with bank accounts in Qatar. Anyway, let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. Thanks for watching.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.